Hey guys, welcome back to some more AFK Arena. Today we're back over on the YouTube account and we're going to be looking at the Heroes of Esperia. There was a guide that actually popped over on Reddit that I want to break down. And looking at the Heroes of Esperia, you can see we're very short-lived with 2 more days, but it is a free-to-play guide. So if you're pushing, trying to get to the final chapter and trying to get to that Masters level within the Heroes of Esperia, hopefully this is going to help you. So let's hop over, take a look, and we'll break down this guide. All right, guys, so here it is, and this is a guide from Obsidian Cutie. Now, we know every now and then that we see some guides pop up, and I want to break down the Heroes of Esperia, the free-to-play teams. Now, looking here, I want to note some of the very important things, and I will also put a link down to the guide down below. So, number 1, Seal is the most important team in the Heroes of Esperia. Generally everywhere, including the Treasure Scramble, absolutely vital. Now, looking in here, we have Thorin. You can see in here the Awakened version of Belinda. We also do have Lucius in here if it is not used, if the Ice Crown is not used. Worst enemy teams. This is a very tweak for the Seal team because as the 6th hero within this game makes a really big difference on how well this team can perform. So looking over here, it does have the teams itself. First one focuses on Thorin. You can see we have some changes in here with some of these Shell tier being utilized a lot. We have Nox in here, we have Randy, we have Eugene, we also have Hildwyn in here. Depending on exactly who you have, we have Matria and the original version of Taylene right over here on the left-hand side. Now, if you do not possess Thorin, that's okay, because we can look at the no Thorin comps right here on our left. As you can see, we have Liberta and Lucilla together with the Seal team, working incredibly well, running a couple different combinations over here. And let me try to zoom this in a little bit further. But looking over here, you can see Lucilla with the ability to come back to life makes a really big difference. Nox, of course, running all over the battlefield like crazy. Then with Sheltier running in a bunch of these different formations. And the reason being, if you have Sheltier, again, the revive, very similar to what we've seen with Lucilla, works very well. Now looking down here, there's also one, if you do not possess Sheltier or the Awakened version of Thorin, there are a couple different formations based on the Seal. Using the Seal against their worst comps every time and skipping any of those matchups because this one is going to crowd control like crazy if you're fighting the Ice Crown. Now looking at the Lucius free-to-play, now if you built out the Awakened version of Lucius, congratulations, he requires a really big build, which is important to note. You have to make sure and you have to note it does require a very big build. And you'll notice within here on the left side, that the Awakened version of Lucius with Jerome, we have Shuna in here, we have Lavatoon, we have Gavis. Gavis is going to provide some of the damage mitigation that Lucius needs to survive. A lot of times we've seen Lucius with other ones, including Ulna, but as it sits right now, doing incredibly well by himself within this formation. Now, also, you can see the one beast that we have in here, which is our Halloween beast. Very cool to see being run in this formation. Also, the Ice Crown. Ice Crown, again, provides them some of the crowd control. Facing mirror matches are quite easy, especially when we have our spooked spectator. Facing the right here, the teams, it is mandatory. So if you're facing the Seal and going against a Seal team, it is mandatory to absolutely run the Ice Crown in here because it is the big crowd control piece that shuts down the Seal team in its entirety. Gavis is mandatory for almost every team if you don't have them. It could lead to many losses if no Gavis. Eugene is absolutely mandatory. If paired with Eugene, go with the SP effect in there. Now, Draconic Heroes, if you're including them, if you built them out, you can see we have Halia in here, we have Amelion in here, we also do have Hildwyn in here. So a couple different formations to really use. And even looking down here in the middle, where you can see Shuna and Aurelia can be tweaked around your teams depending on what you have. Then we get into the Awakened version of Safiya. Most common teams are mostly underperforming in the Heroes of Esperia just because other teams can win against her. So looking at here, there are some pretty decent builds in here. Still running Rem. Now this is imperative because if you have Rem built out very well and very high, Aurelia or Demia provide a lot of buffs, including the Panda Dumpty. So if you're running the Panda in here, also running Naruko in some of these formations, as we can see on the left. Draconic includes Lan, and it brings Scion in here. So again, depending on exactly who you have built, it's going to make a big difference. And Skylin is also in here. Skylin plus the Awakened version of Safiya can be used against mirror teams or as a niche burst. Also looking at the Awakened version of Shamira. And again, when it comes to PvP, it is super imperative to who you have built. It's very hard to go through and kind of pick and choose and swap out a bunch of different heroes in here because we don't know exactly who you have built. That is why Obsidian QD puts so many different comps in here, is because depending on what beasts you have, depending on what heroes you have, could make a really big difference. Now, even here, we have Skylin in here with Ulna, super strong team. And then Chimera down here with Safiya, again, a very strong team. Then we get into the Awakened version of Eironn. Now, this, of course, is probably one of the higher priority heroes that we see, short of building like a Thorin. I would probably put him above Thorin just for the simple fact that it's really high utility, one of a kind, does very burst, also has a considerable amount of crowd control, can do well against most matchups. And you'll also notice right here on our left that it is almost Ulna exclusive. He does have very big survivability issues. Even looking at the rest of the formation, you have Misha in here. You do have Goran in here. You have the Awakened version of Lyca. We see Lan in a couple formations. We have Palmer and Aurelia. Very important, again, to try to keep him alive. And then some more crowd control, which goes in here. He's great against the Awakened version of Lucius. He's great against running against Belinda, Safiya, a couple other ones, which are really strong, especially building out land. If you have land, the utility for land still very high. Honorable mentions down here. Gregor, you can see, is in here. We have Hendrik in here. Also do have right here running some dimensional heroes to include running Albedo, running Rem in a formation, again with Shuna. So you have to see also where you do overlap. If there's a lot of different places where you're seeing a very high overlap, you might have to look at other heroes that you can put into the formations. You can swap these around depending on your team. Very important. Then we look at Chimera. So we know the Awakened version of Chimera is super broken in here, and traditionally, or what we've seen lately, one of those teams that can either be decent or the absolute best is we're seeing that Awakened version of Chimera being run with the Awakened version of Athalia, which is very strong. Now, you'll also notice that Envy is in here in some of the advanced teams. We are also running Ivan, which is an absolute priority. But Zora also did make formation, or made it into a few formations in here. And Mira is actually in the advanced team as well. Very interesting. These are running the Owl in their entirety. Free-to-play prefers mirror matchups or weak teams to play against, and then Envy can be used against most teams as well. Then there are a few different honorable mentions or a couple niche formations back here, because when we start thinking of the heroes of Esperia and when we start looking back at a lot of other heroes that we've seen, the Awakened version of Belinda was an absolute priority team that devastated with our Rock Lizard in here. Absolutely is still viable, still can be used in a lot of different formations. Even looking again, if you have Zora built out, and even down in the bottom, we have the full 5 Hippo team. Absolutely love the build on the Hippo team. It's very cool to see that this is still running with the Shroom Splitter in here. Then you can see we have Rimuru in here with Rem and Amelia. Zora in here running the Talisman, or again, the Slumbering Seal, depending on who you have. Now, Belinda is very niche, unless you do have her very well and high built out. Mine has a plus 80 engraving, which makes a big difference. Now, Draconics with Liberta and Lucilla work very well if you don't have that Awakened version of Lucius. Burst is niche here. Now, we do have, of course, the buff that comes with the Heroes of Esperia. Dims do very well and very good in Master and Legends. 5 teams very rarely can be found. Of course, not seeing a crazy amount of utility when it comes to a lot of the dimensional heroes. The Draconic heroes still seeing quite a bit of play, and I do love my Seal teams. Guys, again, I'm going to put a link down to this below so you can check it out. With the last couple days to push to Masters, let me know in the comments what you guys think, and as always, thank you guys for watching.